for joining us today. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm your host, Karen Biwot. I am a food systems specialist in a nutshell and the agri-food systems lead for Global Business Network. GFBN is the host for this webinar. We welcome you all. GFBN is a global platform that works to strengthen our food safety and quality systems and even trade readiness among MSMEs and agribusinesses, that is in food and agriculture. We offer capacity building, we support MSMEs, we promote private partnerships and even public collaboration. And generally, we connect businesses with CBs, technical partners, and also access to market both locally and globally. So this webinar generally reflects our commitment to unlocking market access for African fresh produce. Of course, through a practical, inclusive, and scalable solution for our quality standards. And that is what promotes trade. Thank you so much. I hand this over to our moderator for the day, and you're all welcome. Please involve us in your chat box, write to us, tell us where you're joining us from, and you're highly welcome. So let's do this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, and good morning and welcome everyone to this live session. My name is Abdulwasi Yomi Alimi, and I'll be moderating this session here today. We have 5 speakers, or panelists, or experts, as you may call them, who will be throwing more light and expanding on some of the burning questions or clarifications that we probably might have around our businesses, particularly when it relates to getting ready for export. So thank you so much, everyone, and welcome. Karen, thank you once again. So Karen today is having 2 hats. She's a host, and she's also a member of the panelists, and then she will be also sharing our expert knowledge with us too at the end of the day. But before we proceed, I would like to indulge everyone. Please, if you have friends who are also in the agribusiness, please share this link with them and please invite them over to join. I know this is a Pan-African event, and so we have different time zones, and so perhaps some might have seen the time zone on the flyer and probably might not be the time zone where they are. So please, as much as possible, for the West African guys, it is 9 a.m. We're starting now. For the Central African guys, it's 10 a.m. And for the East African guys, it is 11 a.m. So please share the link with your friends and get them on board to come here. 5 experts are going to be, sharing their knowledge and experiences with us. It is not something you want to miss. Neither do you want your friend or your colleagues to miss it, right? Like they say, if you want to go far, go alone. But if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So please do not keep this knowledge or information to yourself. Please share with your friends and your colleagues, and let's maximize this opportunity that we have. So we'll jump right straight to it. First will be the introduction. I already mentioned we have 5 panelists. It will be a pleasure to ask them to introduce themselves, and then also we'll take it off from there. So they have 2 minutes each to introduce themselves, what they do, the country they represent, and what exactly the organization they also represent at the end of the day. So, of course, for privilege purpose, I would give Karen the opportunity to reintroduce herself now as a panelist and not as a host. Karen, please, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I'm Karen Chamutai Biwot. I'm Kenyan, and I'm also, for today, I'm from Zim as well. I'm representing GFBN. I am a food scientist and a food system specialist in a nutshell. I've worked extensively with MSMEs to implement and also support businesses for market access. I've worked extensively with GFBN and also in Kenya with Vitals Consult to train, capacity build, and also implement quality management systems and also food safety. I've been at QM for a while, but currently I'm consulting for these services with also experience and expertise in trade and agribusiness. My background is in food science, and I'm a champion for food safety. So that's me in a nutshell. And I've worked also with Titi. Titi will also introduce herself and also introduce the work that you're currently doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Karen. So, we'll go straight to Eric. Eric, please confirm you can hear. Eric, you can introduce yourself.
I, I hope you can hear me.
Eric, Eric, can you hear us? Okay, so we don't waste time. Cece, please, can you go next? Cece? Susan, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Would you please take the floor?
Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Susan Juguna. I am a Kenyan, but currently in Rwanda. I am a food safety professional. My background is food science, and I think this is my 12th year in experience in the exports of fruits and vegetables. My experience runs back in Kenya mostly, but I've been in Rwanda for the last 1.5 years now, still doing the exports of fruits and vegetables. And I am a champion of food safety, like that runs in my blood. I'm also a certified BRCGS auditor, but my championing, currently I'm running operations for an export company in Rwanda, but my background and knowledge and vast knowledge is in food safety. So that's me in a nutshell. We'll interact more with as we go on with the session.
Apologies, can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can I hear you?
Okay.
Yes, you're all
Oh,
audible.
okay. Susan, can you please go ahead? I lost you for a sec.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I was done. I can do it again. So, as I have said, my name is Susan Juguna. I'm a, I'm a Kenyan, but currently based in Rwanda for the last 1.5 years. My experience around 12 years now runs back in Kenya in exports of fruits and vegetables. And but my main line is food safety. I'm also a certified BRCGS auditor. And whatever runs in my blood, as much as I'm currently running operations, is food safety. I'm a food safety champion. So anything fruits and vegetables, avocado, and all the range of vegetables and herbs and everything, I have knowledge in that, in the exports. So that's me in a nutshell. We'll interact more as the session goes by.
Absolutely. Thank you, Susan. Of course, East African avocado, they go hand in hand. Like you can't miss it, right? And when you hear East
Yeah.
African, you hear avocado.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Eric, can you hear us now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Loud and clear. You have the floor.
Thank you. I have a problem with the video. That's what I'm trying to fix, but I can go ahead and introduce myself. Yeah, so let me just try. I hope you can see me now.
Eric, you can just go ahead. Yes, we can see you.
Okay. Apologies for that. My name is Eric Nkanata Munene. I'm an agronomist by training, but more into food safety auditor. I've been working in the certification body industry for the last 16 years or so. I specialize in food safety standards, export standards, starting from an auditor all the way up to a scheme manager for Global Gap. So I've been able to work across the continent, interacting with farmers in various value chains, from cocoa, coffee, tea, fresh produce, and I've been able to do quite a number of standards. And after that, I joined private consultancy. I'm the founder and principal consultant at Vitos Consult, where we specialize in setting up standards for producers, training, and market access and other services that are more biased towards export standards. So I'm happy to be here and looking forward to interacting with the participants and the fellow speakers. Thank you so much. I hope there is
Thank
no
you, Eric.
echo. You can hear me.
Yeah, we did hear you. We did hear you and we did see you. And I love your jacket. After this webinar, probably you send one over to me. And you look good,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
Pleasure.
Absolutely. Damian, are you here?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. You have the floor.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and I'm honored to be here. My name is Damian Ameloko. I serve as a consultant with Futuxari Consult Limited, where I support agribusinesses and producers across Nigeria and outside of Nigeria to implement or to help them achieve food safety and sustainability certification, such as FSSC 22000, Global Gap, ISO 22000, Halal, and the likes. So it's an honor to be here, just like I made mentioned, and I'm looking forward to the interactions that we'll be having this morning. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Damian. By the way, did you tell them you're Nigerian? I'm not so sure I heard that. Can you tell
Yeah,
them that you're
I
Nigerian?
forgot that part. I am Nigerian. I am Nigerian. Thank you. Yeah.
That's the best part. Yeah, thank you. Sissy, are you available now?
I think it's Daisy who's going next.
Hi, TC. Sorry? What did you say?
Our next speaker is Daisy. Daisy, please take the podium and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Daisy Munyati. I'm the founder and lead consultant for Agri-Kilimo Farmer Support. We operate out of Zimbabwe with a reach to different countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. The countries that we work in include Zambia, Malawi, South Africa, Nigeria, Uganda. So right now I'm in Nigeria. So our services include capacitating farmers for Global Gap, which is our main service. And we are a registered trainer of Farmer Shura for Global Gap. And the other service that we are major in is organic standard. and then any other primary production standard, including the social standards like SMETA, fair trade, BRC. It depends with what the market wants for the clients. So that's about us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Daisy. And when Nigeria are you, perhaps for those in Nigeria, they want to catch up with you. When Nigeria are you?
I'm in Jos, but I'm about to leave.
Yeah. Okay. Damian, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah. But I will not start with Sissy, let me know when you're ready, right? So
Okay,
we
I can
can
go in now.
okay.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for taking your time joining the webinar. Unfortunately, I didn't have my template done, but I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Sitsi Mtanga. I'm a Zimbabwean, founder of the Global Food Business Network. Our mandate is to connect stakeholders from farm to fork with the goal of bringing digitalization, smarter solutions, promoting sustainable practices, as well as bridging knowledge gaps and providing capacity building and training. It's such an honor to have a team of experts joining us today and unpacking more about trade, quality, and standards for fresh produce. We believe that Africa is a good source of most of this fresh produce. We are actually exporting quite a lot to Europe and maybe now to China and other markets. And as Africans, how do we join hands and help each other to get our produce out in the market? Today, this webinar should unpack that for us because I was listening to everyone's profile and I thought there's so much that we can do together. And if we join hands, we can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sissy. And writing on that, I'll dive straight into the questions that we will need some clarifications from the experts. But first of all would be let me start from Karen, right? Just an open question. If you want to buy clothes or you want to buy shoe or something, I mean, you don't look for standards. You just go to the market and just buy, right? So what exactly do we mean by standards in fresh produce? What does standard mean? I mean, if I just want to buy avocado, I just buy avocado. If I just want to buy any food, I should be able to just buy and move on. So what exactly are we talking about here when we're talking about standards?
Okay, so standards are a mark of quality, an approach that is used to assess the quality of your products. So if I go to the market and I'm assessing the avocados that I should buy, definitely I'm looking for certain aspects, be it aesthetically, be it the appearance, the texture. So those are the quality parameters that then set the standards for a product. That's where now you are able to grade and say this product is probably a first grade, it is high quality, another one is probably a lower quality because maybe it has mechanical damages, it could probably have dents, or it could probably have a smoother texture. So those are the aspects I'd look for in a product. And for instance, even other non-food products, you definitely look out for a product that suits you, and that is mainly on customer preference. So when we talk of standards and quality, we are referring to consumer preference and also the
Thank you very
threshold
much,
that
Karen, right?
yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. You can wrap up your thoughts, Karen.
Yes, so I'd say standards are the mark that we use after assessing our quality parameters. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Karen. To Susan, why should we really care as a continent, right? Why is it important for us to really care about standards, how food are produced, how food are packaged, how food are transported, how food are marketed? Why is it important? Why now?
Um, I'd say that standards are mainly divided into three major parts. There is the quality aspect of a product, there is the safety aspect of a product, and there's the legal part of the product. And whatever tops the list should be safety because that affects the health of the consumer. It depends if you take food that is unsafe, that can lead to either injury or even death. So the primary reason why standards are very key is the safety of the product because it directly affects the life of the consumer. And also, we don't want to get into legal issues when it comes to issues like weights and labels. If you are labeling your product that I'm selling to you 2 kg of this product, and then when the client weighs and finds it's
Hello?
1.5 kg, then we are likely to get into legal issues. So it is very key that we look, the standards are important because they affect the quality aspects of the product, the safety aspect of the product, and the legal aspect of the product. That's why the standards are very important. Have you heard me?
Yes, I did. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Again, that's why you're the expert, right? So you to tell us exactly what all of these are about. So I'll go to Damian, right? So for MSMEs, the micro, small, medium enterprises, what exactly are some of these misconceptions that they have around certifications? Because again, I mean, if indeed we're sure that we're producing right, then why aren't we getting certified? Why aren't we having more farms getting certified? What exactly are these misconceptions around certifications?
Okay, thank you so much, Abdul. I think the bigger misconception is for SMEs is they always believe that certification is too expensive, and they also believe that certification doesn't have to do anything doesn't have to do with them, that it doesn't concern them. But in the real sense of it, certification is always scalable. You can start small, and for you to be able to scale to the next level. So I think is there's so many mechanisms in place right now that okay, even as an SME or a smallholder farmer or producers, you can come together, form a group, and you'll be able to get your produce certified. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Straight to the point. I like that. Um, Eric, confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
How are organizations making certifications inclusive? How are we able to support our smallholder farmers to have an inclusive certification and seamless process?
Um, um, Sorry, repeat the question.
Can you hear me now? Is it loud and clear?
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay. I was asking, how can we achieve an inclusive certification process for our smallholder farmers?
Yeah, so basically, like everyone has said, smallholder farmers are the bulk of the farmers that we have in our production systems across Africa. And without them, we will not be able to get the volumes that are required for export markets or even local markets. So in terms of how we can support them and include them in the process and how we do it ourselves is involve the farmers when you are setting up the internal control systems. Farmers are a critical part of running the whole system. I know most of the export companies use smallholder farmers. They set up their ICS at their level, then they start exporting. But how we do it is we involve the farmers. When we are doing our risk assessments, you are involving them. They understand the process and they own the process. Not just introducing a new system to them, include them in when you're doing your risk assessments, when you're doing your gap analysis, talk to them about the standard itself in the simplest format you can be able to do it. Ensure they understand the journey of certification is not just getting the paper certificate and moving on. It involves them in every aspect of the ICS. So we include the farmers in that process, go with them through the gap analysis, involve them in the trainings, involve them even in development of some of the documents, ask them which format is simple for them to use. And in that way, they own the system and they feel part of it. So involve the farmers in every aspect, even the technical aspects, break them down into the simplest format you can. And in that way, they become part of the QMS and they own it. And it's very easy to implement when you involve farmers from the start. Hear me? You still there?
Thank you, Eric, for that. Please confirm you can hear me. Karen, can you hear me? Let to be
Yes,
sure.
you're audible.
Can you hear me,
Everybody
Karen?
audible. Yes.
Okay. So this I have a so there's this, I don't know if I should say it's a buzzword, but these are the things that we hear every single day. Market access, market opportunity, market readiness, export readiness. What does this really mean? What does it look like for a smallholder farmer when we talk of export readiness?
Okay, that was for me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so export readiness is a bit complex because it starts with a farmer who has a business model which is sustainable, because export is not about certification only. Certification is like at the peripheries. So in the first place, does the farmer have a farm business model? Do they have a marketing plan? Have they connected to a market? Because usually trade standards that we're talking about today come after people have entered the market, scanned the market, and they've been told this is the standard that we have. Sometimes it's not black and white that everyone is going to say we want organic standard. So most of the time you find farmers are like, we want organic certification because we heard that's what the market want. But what does your specific market want? So export readiness starts with having a farm business model, having a proper marketing research, having a list of possible off-takers who then communicate the standards that they want, and you now start working towards those standards. So for me, that's export readiness.
Thank you. So just still a follow-up question. You mentioned you're in Nigeria right now at the moment. What exactly are you doing in Nigeria and how are you supporting the guys in Nigeria here?
So currently it was just a gap analysis. I wanted to see the potentials that's there for some of the value chains that are being grown here. For example, there are strawberry farmers in the Plateau State who produce like quite impressive amounts of strawberries. So it was just an analysis and a feasibility study, what's required if we were to have someone connect these farmers to a sustainable market, maybe in the broader Nigeria or broader Africa region. So we just wanted to see their practices, see how their clusters can be organized. So that's basically why I was here in Jos, Plateau State.
Okay, thank you very much. Sisi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So we've been hearing gaps. I mean, Damien mentioned gaps, Karen mentioned gaps, Daisy just mentioned gaps again. What does this gap mean? Is it gap between one house to the other? Or what does this gap mean? Or is it a gap between one farm to another farm? What does gap? What is gap?
Okay, thank you very much for that question.
I see.
A gap would be what is present and what needs to be done. I think in simple terms, that's what it means. When, for example, when Daisy is doing an assessment, she's looking at the level at which the farmer is probably record keeping, the type of pesticides they're probably using. And now she then advises them on what needs to be done according to the standard requirements. If it's organic, as an example, you cannot apply certain chemicals for an organic produce. So a gap is the difference between what is available or what is there and what is required.
Thank you, TC. You're done?
Yes, I'm done. Yes, I'm done.
Thank you. Karen, does the entire continent, I mean, across the continent, West, East, Central Africa, do they have the same standards? So if I have, for instance, now I have a farm in Nigeria, and then I have another farm in South Africa, and I have another farm in Kenya. Is this standard across all countries, or do each specific countries have their specific standards that they need to meet?
Okay. So when we previously mentioned about standards are either internal to mean those that work for your agribusiness. We have local standards and we have global standards. So other than internal standards that you have within your operation, you also have local standards. So local standards are within the nation. For instance, Kenya would have their own local GAP standards. They have their own Kenyan or East African standards. Similarly for Southern region and West. Now, when we move to global standards now command the entire continent. Those are international standards. And looking at what drives the standards, it is depending on now the importers, the nations that we are exporting for the international standards. So for instance, when you talk of trade, we are talking about the unions within which we are trading. So you could have an European Union that will definitely have their own specifications towards the standards. So other than having a farm that is global GAP certified or globally proving to have good agricultural practices. So other than that, probably the European Union would require for you to definitely adhere to certain agri inputs, use certain, if it is any input that you're using, they have the specifications to it. There are nations, for instance, like China, they would require for maybe East African avocado varieties to be waxed or to have a certain step introduced within their processes. So the entire trade union will command different specifications, and that is the market that it is serving. But global standards mean international standards. So if I'm being certified by Agrikilimo here or guided by VITUS, it means that the global gap certification in Kenya will be the same replica of a global certification, a global gap certification in Nigeria, in Zim, and in Zambia. So globally, it would mean an ISO standard. It would mean an international certification approach. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen, for that. We might also probably again, just to make it more interactive, and so it is not just a lecture or lecturer and student session. Perhaps we can just take 5 minutes, right, and check with the audience. If there's anyone with any questions or clarifications so far, please, you can either unmute or you can send your questions in the menu box, the chat box, and then we'll read it out. We can just take that for 5 minutes for the audience to also have to interact with the panelists. There's anyone who has a question, please feel free to unmute and ask your question. Okay, while we wait, you can type your questions. If you're shy, probably you don't want us to hear your voice, that is fine. You can just leave your questions in the inbox and chat menu. So I wanted to ask, so Eric, please confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
If, as a farmer, I want to export to an African country, and I also want to export to, say, US or Europe or Asia, for instance, what do I need to do? Is it the same standard that I need to adhere to if I want to export to Kenya from Nigeria, and I want to export from Nigeria to Europe or to China? Is it the same standard? Is it the same process? Is it the same auditing I'll go through? Or are there different standards, specification requirements by each country?
Thank you for that question. Like Karin said, there are various standards, both local and international. So the first thing you need to do if you want to export or import, let's say within the continent, the first thing is to check with the law. What does the law say? What does your import law in the country that you are in says about import? And most of that information is available. Nowadays, if you type in and search, you'll be able to get that. In Kenya, for example, there's an Infonet kind of website where you get all the standards that are required. So once you establish what the law says about import and export, then that's your starting point, because most of the countries will have phytosanitary requirements, for example, where you need to establish the status of the product you're importing in terms of phytosanitary issues. The next thing will be the usual import standards and specifications. If you're doing fresh produce, if you're doing grains, each has their own specifications. But more you can do is also use the global standards. Most of the standards are acceptable across the world, especially those ISO-based standards. If the company you are dealing with is accepting these global standards, the best is to apply that, start with the basics, start with the phytosanitary and the legal requirements, cover that first, and then go over and above and implement global standards. Most of them are acceptable across the world because they are based on ISO standards, which most of the countries are signatory to. So once you do that, you should be able to go through the normal import-export procedures, and at the port, ensure that you tick all the boxes that are required from phytosanitary to specifications, to standards, to tests, and all that is required. And I believe in that way you can be able to do your trade. And people do that, whether it's grains, whether it's fresh produce. We are trying to encourage the intra-Africa trade, and through the AFTA and all these other regional blocks. I believe once we harmonize our standards, we should be able to trade without any issue across the borders.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yomi, you froze. I think everyone else is still here with us. I see another question on the chat box. Thank you, Eric. I see another question on the chat box that Caroline is asking. So do these standards apply only when someone wants to export, or even if it's within local markets? Maybe Susan, you can take it up. Do we really have to apply our standards when it comes to export market, or is it also applicable for local markets? And maybe how can MSMEs take this up in a simpler way, comply? Yes.
Okay, thank you, Karin. What I would say is that for consumers' benefit, standards are very key to apply, and the food safety awareness is growing day by day globally, and that is why standards are becoming thorough, more revised, more reviewed, and more stringent. Now, it happens that in the markets we export to, the food safety awareness level is very high, and that is why a client would only buy a product that is probably certified and shows that it has been checked. The food safety awareness level locally is not that much. So most people would not be requiring food to be certified. And that's why people can grow anyhowly and sell anyhowly, because the consumers are not demanding for food that is certified. So you realize that very few entities locally are requiring standards. Like when you go to big hotels now, you'll find that they're applying HACCP, and then they would be checking how you're growing your product. But it's not entirely applicable for the whole country. It depends on the level of awareness and where you're buying your product. So partly, some people are applying standards, and partly, especially now in the villages, people who are not aware and who are not, maybe if I could use the word, very exposed to the food safety awareness, some don't require anything. You'll just go to the market and buy product. They don't know where it was grown. They'll just buy and consume. So it is the level of the food safety awareness that is affecting all that. Locally, not all people are certifying. Internationally, most of the client will be asking for a certification or a standard. They will be checking what you are complying to.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, I'll come back.
Yes, I was just, my apologies. My internet just kept logging me out. So just based on this question, right? So exactly what I've always had a burning question around this, right? Why do we have to pay so much attention to food that we want to export, but we pay less attention to food that we consume within the continent? Are there any is anyone able to speak about this, right, in terms of these standards? That are we able to have a barest minimum standard in the local market that we don't have to produce food as we like for ourselves, but when we want to export, we'll now put the extra effort in getting quality food? Is there a balance somewhere that regardless of the location or the geography that you want to sell the food, there is a barest minimum standard that has to be put in place in the production. Is anyone able to speak? So I won't just even just call a name now. Is anyone able to speak into this when it comes to standards in general terms without having to put geography in context?
So maybe I will comment on that. As I said, I think most of these standards are driven by consumer awareness. The person who is consuming the food, the level of awareness of why food safety is important and how it affects their day-to-day life, their health, the consumer awareness in other countries is very high, and that's why the consumers are demanding for safe food. So the level of awareness locally in our countries, African countries, is not that much. So I think the people who are aware and those who are like us now, we should campaign into making more people aware of how food affects their health and their day-to-day life, and probably advocacy to the government so that now they can put policies that will require food to reach the minimum standards. So I think it all has to do with the level of awareness. Most people don't know how food affects their health. When you go to the village and find the ladies, we know the analogy where a woman will be selling eggs to the market, buy the children bread. They don't know how that affects the children because they are not aware. So what we are doing now can really help if we create awareness and also we push the advocacy, I think, to the government so that now these rules can be, and people can be more educated and exposed. Because if the consumers are okay with what they are consuming, certification and standard can be costly. So people will avoid that and they will not implement. So I think it has really to do with awareness.
Absolutely. Thanks. So customer advocacy is quite very key to how the standards are actually, implemented, right? So at the end of the day, it still boils down to customers holding the farmers accountable or holding the food vendors accountable to what they actually produce, right, at the end of the day. Daisy, you want to contribute to the conversation? I saw your hands raised up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So just to add on to that, besides consumer awareness, you find the regions that are demanding more standards. Let's say governments or administrations that are a bit more developed. So you find even in Africa, like South Africa is like basic standards that they expect, and even their local food chains, they are demanding the basic standards. So sometimes it also depends with what the government is pushing for. And then you find all these other nations, we have existing maybe statutory instruments that are at a basic level, but then they are just being implemented at a basic level, which most people are not aware of. Even the processors or the farmers themselves are not aware of what is the food safety national regulation like. So the laws are there, but then it depends with what the government is focusing on at that particular time. So other developed nations in Africa, like South Africa, do have a focus on how people are growing, how food processors are doing what. So it also depends on the government. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Daisy. So this particular one is something that we're going to enlarge a bit because every single one on this call, on this webinar today, is either a producer or a consumer. So how you produce, how we consume. So everyone is affected by food, right? I won't just limit this to just Daisy and Susan, right? I'd also like other panelists to also contribute to this because it's super important that we get this right on the continent. And for obvious reasons, right? First is, we need a healthy population. If we really want to be prosperous as we've aspired to be as a continent, we need to have first a healthy population, and that starts from the food that we consume. Secondly, we also need to reduce the pressure on our healthcare system. So to reduce the pressure on that also is the less people are sick. I mean, the more the healthcare are able to cater for other parts of diseases that are not related to foodborne, for instance, right? So we also need to reduce pressure on that healthcare system, and that also starts from food. So again, as producers of food, in case we also do not know, because again, we have farmers who see themselves, I just farm, I'm just a farmer, and that is it. You're a doctor, right? You're a catalyst for economic prosperity, because not only that are you feeding people, you're also keeping people healthy. You're also prolonging people's lives, and you're also helping people to be able to, fulfill. Oh, my network.
It's okay. I think in the meantime, I see a few questions. In the meantime, you can have, please when you ask a question, just let us know where you're joining us from and what part of the value chain are you a key player? Are you a producer? Are you a technical person? Are you an exporter? Are you a farmer who's looking to get into your either local or global market? I see a few questions other than the standards one. I see Sanjay asking, how can African exporters be able to meet the required European market standards, which are more lucrative? What should be done? And I understand maybe EU is just but one of the large importers of produce from Africa, but maybe we can recognize also other trade regions that are importing from Africa while we are contributing to this question. I think, Eric, with your extensive experience working with the EU market, maybe you can begin and all other panelists can have a contribution to it. So how can we as African exporters be able to meet these required EU standards, which are more lucrative, and generally what should be done?
Thank you for that. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. You're audible.
Yeah, so basically the key thing is depending on the value chain that you're working with, like we've always said, work with the producer groups. If you're not a big producer who can gather volumes that are required for export, ensure that you have the enough volumes so you can join as farmer group models, which are smallholder models, which are very common across Africa. And if you can be able to do it on your own, the first thing is start implementing the local legislation, because most of the local legislation or the local standards are based on global principles of food safety. So whether it's a local ASAP that is enforced in most of the countries, start working with those. We always say for standards, start obeying the law, use the right chemicals that are approved, use the right good agricultural practices that are recommended. Once you start doing the basics of compliance with the law, if you comply with the local law in most of the countries, you've done maybe 40% of the most of the export standards. So that's the first step. Once you do that, then always look at the market. Like everyone has said, Susan has said, all these standards are consumer driven. So depending on the client that you want to deal with, ask them what are their requirements. Most of them are known. If you're exporting to EU, for example, you know there are EU regulations, which is the basis of most of the food safety standards. Global Gap, for example, is based on an EU regulation. And the EU regulation, we mean, is their local law. Basically, what they do is someone picks the local law in Europe and makes it a private standard. And that's what we are calling here Global Gap. That's what we are calling FSSC and all that. So they start with obeying their law. And by importing to their countries, they ensure they comply with the local law. So what we can do is, like I said, ensure you know your market, ensure you know what are their requirements, work on your volumes, work on your quality, because at the end of the day, besides standards, we have to have our quality in place, we have to have our volumes and our risks managed. Then work with the local authorities. There are consultants across all these regions. There's a representation here across Africa. Start engaging them, ask them for support. And once you're able to do that by doing your local legislation, then engaging a consultant, for example, to guide you on the next steps, knowing what your client wants, then you should be able to start your journey towards compliance with these European market standards. So first thing is to know what your client requires. Some of them will not even ask for some standards. Others will ask for more than 5 standards. So once you know that, then you start working upwards from the local legislation all the way to now putting a quality management system in place and complying with the requirement. I hope I've been able to answer that.
Yes. You've unpacked that very well. As a producer, I should have taken down that. And also, it is very detailed. And just looking at also what Agrikilimo is doing, Daisy, maybe you can help us understand how that has been so far for most African producers here, and how has the EU standards been? As Sanjay is asking, is it more lucrative, and how can we help producer maybe maintain compliance for these standards?
Thank you, Karen. So for me, I always go back to the farming business model. It all starts with the vision that you have as a farmer, and you need to do thorough work on how you are going to do business. You need to invest in market research. So in my experience, the farmers who would take their time to build a model on a certain value chain, and they develop their commercial business based on that, they are really successful. They really do well. We go on to certify them with organic standards or with global GAP, because it's a running business. They've connected to a market, they've gotten a market contract, and year in, year out, they are able to sustain the certification course, they are able to get the skills that are required, and they successfully go on to export. Now coming to MSMEs or startups in farming, usually people take on ideas that are fly by night. Let's say there's someone who is selling passion fruit seeds, and then they write passion fruit is money, it is demanded in Europe on a Facebook post, and then everyone goes on to buy passion fruit seedlings. And then the next thing is, we can't export to Europe. For us to export to Europe, we need global GAP. Now they are stuck. They have 1 hectare of passion fruit. They don't know a specific client, and they didn't even have a 5-year plan about what they want to do with this value chain. So for SMEs and for smallholder farmers, I always say we need to start seeing farming as a business and develop at the simplest level a business plan. Find out what are the market resources available in the country, because you don't jump to go to certification or to go to start putting up standards when you don't have a market. You then realize probably there's no market for the passion fruit that you grew. Maybe the window gap for your fruit is wrong. Maybe it's the time where the biggest supplier, maybe like Vietnam for passion fruit, is in the market, so you can't even go in. So it's all about proper business planning, proper market research, and setting up a farm, even if you're a smallholder. And then for some smallholders, we go on to successfully certify them, but they are being capacitated, let's say by non-governmentals or by development organizations or by public-private partnerships, and they don't have the skill. So their certification is relying on consultants, and sometimes it's difficult to develop internal skill amongst them who can maintain the certification. And you go on to see that when the program ends, if it's a developmental organization program, when the program ends, those farmers are just left with a standard they don't know anything to do about. They are left with a market they don't know anything to do with. They don't even know how to service that market. They don't know how to maintain the market. So for SMEs, it's a lot. It's not just about standard. it starts from the business model. That is the emphasis that I have started to give, because when I started, I thought it's always about certification, but let's look at it from developing a proper sustainable business plan for any level of farmer.
Great, great. Thank you so much, Daisy. Damian, yes, please talk to us. And as an auditor, do you just tick off for certification, and how are we helping most MSMEs also comply to both local and export standards?
Okay, thank you so much. I think I agree with the previous speaker, that is Eric and Daisy. I think for export is not really about, it's not only about good product. It's also about meeting the buyer's requirement. I think that is basically it. For SMEs, you just need to meet up with the buyer requirement. And before you do that, you need to start working on your internal system, your documentation, proper documentation and likes. So I always say that, okay, it always begins with the mindset and it ends with system. It's not about certification. Many people don't really have this awareness, and when they want to access export market, they are always after certification. They are not really interested in the system. After the certification, what else is, does your product really meet the requirement and standard that it's supposed to meet? So the mindset should be standard. The mindset should be, okay, the system. Do I have the system in place? Do I have the proper documentation? Many SMEs, they have good product but no proper documentation. So what I would like to advise farmers, smallholders, farmers, producers, SMEs right now is, you have good products, you have good practices, start documenting them in order to, in order to start planning for the export market. Thank you.
Yeah, in quality, we say if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. So we may say so much stories, you may defend your farm so much or your agribusiness and say, no, we clean every day, we do this practice every day. But if it wasn't documented to an auditor, definitely it didn't happen. So Damian may be certifying your auditing you for a global gap certification, but for practices that you may not have documented, but you confidently did them, then they may not be accounted for. And yeah, I'll kick this back to our moderator. But Susan, tell us your experience in the export market, and briefly, how can we implement simple practices on our day-to-day operations, be it in an agribusiness operation setup or at farm level? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karin. My experience, I happen to have worked with big companies in Kenya, luckily. And on only 2 occasions, I've worked with small companies that have had to start from scratch to implement standards, and dealing with small scale farmers. Most of the time, you take employees, like, for example, if you have an agronomist, the simplest steps is to have them go and train the farmers on the basic things like post-harvest handling, and also monitoring what chemicals they're applying to their crops. And most of these small scale farmers and small companies will be having the burden of certification, because if we can be honest, certification can be quite costly. And that might be a hindrance why some do not implement. So I've seen, but there are so many organizations supporting startup businesses out here, and they're willing to, as long as you fulfill small requirements, like if you have a team, they will come and they are willing to pay 50% of the certification costs. So if everybody is set and really willing to have their product comply, it is possible, because there are open avenues where if you show what you're doing, there are so many organizations that are supporting to reduce the cost of certification. So my experience has been in big companies where certification has not been an issue, complying to so many standards, like 5, like Eric had mentioned, the organic, global gap, BRCs, Meta, GRASP, all those. But then I have also had experience with small companies that are struggling with the same because of cost. But I also know that there are so many organizations out here who are willing to support the upcoming SMEs to comply. So if anybody is open and you have the right person doing the business plan, the pitching, it is possible to get support and be able to start. But the basic start is training your farmers from your team so that they know the basic best practices.
Great. Thank you. Yomi, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Loud
I'll
and
contribute a
loud.
bit to what Susan has said. And
Yes.
having worked with MSMEs, throughout, I've been working to help small-scale producers and agribusinesses implement standards. And what I'll say, it begins with leadership commitment. So if you're a leader in your or owning a farm or an agribusiness, please be on the front line to champion for food safety. So while food safety is everyone's responsibility, it takes a lot of leadership commitment and contribution towards endorsing these standards. It could mean as simple as implementing a good hygiene practice within our premises, hand washing, equipment cleaning, and simple procedural steps. So for MSMEs, it doesn't have to be ambiguous that we are being audited for this and that. In the meantime, we could be implementing simple practices, and these are the prerequisites to the major standards. Yes, Yomi, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Karen. So this particular space is where I'm very passionate about when it comes to food security, food safety, right? Because again, at the end of the day, like I mentioned, it is not about what or the quantity of food we eat in, but the quality of food that we take in. And we cannot afford to keep having, foodborne diseases and illnesses across the continent from the food that we produce for ourselves, right? So when it comes to food safety, I'm sold on. You would always find me there. Anywhere there's a conversation around food safety, you'd always find me there. But now there is a food security, there is food safety. Eric, is there a difference between food security and food safety? Because sometimes we use it interchangeably and sometimes we just use it as a standalone. Food security, food security. What does food security mean? What does food safety mean? Can they go hand in hand? Do you think they can go hand in hand or it has to be on an individual level? So is food security, is either food security or it is food safety? What do you think about it? What's your thoughts about this, Eric?
Yeah, hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, so basically, those are terms that are interchangeably used across the food value chains. Basically, food security, as defined by World Bank, means that all people at all times they have access to safe, nutritious food, basically to be able to meet their dietary requirements. So it's about food availability, but food safety is that food that is available. Is it safe? So people confuse the two or interchangeably use the two terms. But basically, food security is on the lower side, having access to nutritious food at all times. But food safety is now that food that you have. Is it safe for consumption? Is it does it have any risk of contamination? So that's the textbook definition of food safety versus food security. I hope I've been able to answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for throwing more light to that question. It's super important that as value players, we understand the terminologies so that we don't mix food safety to mean food security, and we don't use food security to mean food safety. So thanks for throwing more light on that. And it's super important that we also understand that food is medicine, right? Because as Hippocrates put it, that people should take their food as medicine, so they don't take medicine as food. It is super important that you understand that when you're taking one tomato in, you're taking an anti-aging and anti-cancer drug in tomato because of the lycopene in the tomato. It's super important you know that cucumber is 98% water. So if you also want to fight dehydration, rather than go and start walking into one hospital and all of that looking for a dehydration drug, I mean, cucumber is just there for you to just take. But then again, while you're taking cucumbers, it is also super important that these cucumbers are healthy and they are safe for consumption. Because why this particular topic is important, fresh produce, right? Because if you say largely when it comes to fresh produce, largely produce in this space are semi-cooked or consumed raw in its raw form, 100%. So when there are residues, when there are chemicals on that food, you are consuming them 100% because they are not going through any heating process. You don't cook cucumber, right? You don't boil cucumber, right? You consume it 100%. You don't cook lettuce and all of that. So it is super important that as producers, as players, and even as consumers too, that we hold each other accountable for food safety so that at the end of the day, we're not trying to eat to survive, but we're ending up eating to die. That shouldn't be the case, and that is what African and the continent should be at the forefront to ensure that we are producing food that are first of all safe for ourselves as a country, as a continent, and then we're also producing food that are safe for the entire world. It is super important that this clarification is put out for everyone on the call that even you as a consumer you have a responsibility to hold the producer accountable for the quality of food that they produce for you to consume. Because at the end of the day, you're even paying. Yeah, you're paying to buy food. So why are you paying to buy poison? We shouldn't really be paying to buy. We should really be paying to buy and consume quality food. So that is super important that I put that clarification and that context out. And thanks, Eric, for also bringing your expertise to bear. Daisy, you had your hands raised up. Is it a new hand or it's a former hand that is raised up? Daisy?
Okay, so I just wanted to emphasize that whilst food security and food safety are different, they are interlinked. So the rule of thumb is if the food is not safe, it's not food. So it means if
Yep.
you have access to unsafe, contaminated food, you don't have food, you have something else. So food
Yep.
security, the key is access to safe, nutritious food. So food safety is embedded in food security.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Thank you. Tissy, are you with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am. Hi.
You haven't spoken and we want to hear your voice, right? I mean, because for me, when I hear that you'll be on this call, I said I'll pay whatever it takes to be on this call to hear you speak. And now I have the opportunity to even moderate the session. So now speak to me. Talk to me, Daisy. ESG, right? I'm sure we've also heard the terms ESG. I don't even know what ESG means. For me, it's economic, social, and government, whatever. What does ESG mean in the agribusiness industry, and how important it is, and how does this ESG support our entire framework as an industry?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Yomi. Maybe to start, I'm going to help with the definition of what ESG means. So ESG is an acronym for environmental, social, and governance. So when we're looking at ESG, this is mainly under sustainability because I'm sure most of you know that our world is becoming more of a green economy where most organizations are being encouraged to operate to operate in a more sustainable manner where we are saying whatever environmental impact that the business operations have should not affect the future. So, for example, when we're looking at the environment, we're looking at how our business operations, either as farmers or as corporates, how can we operate in a more sustainable manner? The environmental impact. So we have what we call environmental impact assessment, where we then assess the magnitude of impact that we are making. For example, if our business uses a lot of water, we now need to put in strategies to mitigate or to reduce our water consumption or to find ways to give back to that to sort of bridge the gap on that impact that we are making. If your business maybe requires you to use trees, it's unavoidable, it has to be done. What strategies can you then come in and put in place? Because remember, again, we're operating in a social environment. So this is where the social comes in to say, okay, are you then going to plant trees in that community or in other communities for you to either reduce carbon footprint or to actually encourage more trees and more oxygen? Because maybe you're producing a lot of carbon in a certain environment. Are you going back and planting trees in that environment to ensure that you are reducing your carbon footprint? So it's more focused on how you're operating as a business, even the governance. How are things being run in the business? Are we looking at the future? Is it sustainable? Do we have succession plans in place? Do we have growth strategies in place? So it's quite a broad field, and something that I believe us as farmers, us as certifiers, consultants in our different fields, we also need to continuously encourage farmers and the people that we work with to look at the environment, the impact, look at the social, how are the people in the community affected? One thing that we always encourage when we're looking at ESG is give back to the community that you are operating in. Don't come in our community and employ people from 200 kilometers away and bring a truckload of people to work in our community. Engage those people in the community, because that job creation will help the community to grow and to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tisi, for that elaborate explanation on what ESG means. Is this ESG applicable to large farmers, or is it applicable to all farmers? Are there any particular category that are immune to implementing ESG, or is it for everyone, or is it just for a specific set of farmers, maybe the big boys, who are able to, implement some of these ESGs, the planting of trees, the adoption of solar energy for power, and all of that? Who exactly is ESG meant for, and who can implement ESG?
This is for everyone. This is for everyone. Even at household level, we are encouraging people to go to put up solar, reduce the amount of electricity consumption that you are using. So a smallholder farmer can start from where they are. I'll give an example of my experience with some of the farmers. You have someone who's doing cattle. They've got a lot of manure, they've got a lot of access to that. How do we work together in this community? The cattle farmer then gives the vegetable or the fresh produce farmer manure so that they don't go and get chemicalized fertilizer. Now they have organic fertilizer or organic manure that they're going to put in their farm. So this is for everyone. Tree planting should be something we teach our children, because 100 years from now, if everybody is cutting 5 trees a month, we won't have oxygen.
Yeah.
So it's something we're encouraging everyone from small scale to say, whatever you are doing, think about the future. How best can you reduce your carbon? Put up that solar system instead of thinking I'll run a generator all day. If you can afford it, that's fine. But we are saying let's take away the carbon. Let's reduce our electricity consumption. Let's reduce our water consumption, and let's implement new strategies that will work even 100 years from now, when our great-grandchildren are here, they should be able to still farm and be in an environment that's going to thrive. If you notice, our temperatures have increased, our weather patterns have changed. This is because of all the practices, the industrial practices that have been happening in the past century. So us implementing it now will help the future generation reduce your carbon footprint. Try as much as you can go organic, engage Daisy on how best you can produce your organic fresh produce. Go green, put up your solar system. When you are putting up your bowl, how are you giving back into assuring that that water supply that you are using, if you are into drinks, most beverage companies, they use a lot of water. How are you reducing that impact? So in terms of ESG, again, I think with Karin and the team, we do have people that are working on ESG projects, and we can help you to implement these in your different spheres and different sizes as well.
Thank you very much, TC. You've done justice to this particular question, right? Because again, I just mentioned the perception, right, that ESG are meant for the big boys in the industry because they are the ones who are able to afford solar. Because the flashpoint of ESG convert the generator to solar panels and all of that. And the pictures are taking solar panels everywhere. So it makes the smallholder farmer feel, oh, ESG is actually for the big boys. And thanks for throwing out more context into this, that as little as we apply manure, as little as being able, I mean, even for solar in the home gardens and all of that, there are those smaller SHS kits, the small kit for solar that is not necessarily having to do with the bigger panels that can also be adopted in the farm. I mean, for as long as a productive tree, such as fruit tree, for instance. I mean, you can have a fruit tree in your farm. So one mentioned trees is not just about just trees, but even economic trees. A pawpaw, you can plant pawpaw as your perimeter fencing in your farm. You can plant cashew, you can plant mango. You can plant fruit trees across your farm. That is also part of the ESG we're talking about. So it's not necessarily that it is a very prohibitive cost element that you need to have in order to be able to implement ESG. So thanks so much, TC, for, again, I'm very sure that a lot of us have learned today on even this particular topic, because I just mentioned this is the perception. And you being able to break it down that even a garden, not even a small farmer now, just even in the garden, you can actually implement an ESG in your garden, then to your farm, then and to the size of your farm at the end of the day. Thanks so much, TC. We'll be wrapping up very soon, but I have one particular question that came up that is super important that I bring that question up so that we're able to address it. Because if I do not bring back this question, then that perception that exists will continue to exist. And that is not what we want to achieve on this call. And that is certification cost. Quite a couple of times, Susan mentioned around certification is expensive, and all of that. And again, this is the perception, right? Which boils down to the first question I asked Damian around the perception for MSMEs when it comes to certification, right? So can we demystify this? What do we mean by when we say it's expensive? Because if you say it's expensive, you're already losing us. That means I can't get it. That means what is the point? If to get certified, I have to bring an arm and a leg, or I have to call my mother in the village to send me one of her leg in order for me to get certified. Even when I am actually producing by standard, even when I'm producing to standard, even when I do not use, when I'm preserving the environment, when I'm using manure, when I'm using compost for fertilizer, when I'm using biopesticides for my insect management and repellent and all of that. But just to get certified, right? Because the difference between an organic farm and inorganic is a certification, which shows that that farm has undergone auditing and has been certified to be truly organic. Now, I have all the documentations. I have all my processes documented. I have all the inputs right. I have the seeds right. I have my gap right. I have my team right. why should cost now be what will now prohibit me from being certified or being referred to as an organic farmer, or that I have the standard produce ready for export? Can we speak more? So this is also for the auditor and the certifiers now. What do we mean by this course is expensive, and why exactly is it expensive? Can you throw more light into why it is expensive? So I heard it twice from Susan. So I'd like her to be the first, then Damian, and then Eric. Why exactly is this certification expensive? What makes it expensive? What are the cost elements that makes organic certification, not the, okay, organic certification, all certifications? What makes them expensive, and why are they unaffordable, and what can we do to make them affordable? I'll start with you, Susan.
One, I would start by saying that expensive is relative. What is expensive to me might not be expensive to another person. Okay? So when we have of course, we have categories of exporters. There are companies that are doing 90 tons a week in Kenya. So certification to them is not expensive at all. But for SMEs who are starting, let's just take like Global Gap. Before you go and pay a CB, the cost of certification, and let me maybe highlight the country I am in. I'm in Rwanda currently. The export industry is growing here. It's quite new, and like compared to Kenya, for example. And so very few people are certified. And you'll find that there are no auditors. There are no Rwandese auditors. So they have to import auditors from Kenya and somewhere else. Besides the certification cost, which might range from $2,500 to $3,000, you'll have to pay the transport, accommodation, flight charges for that audit. That is just the certification part. Besides, before you call an auditor to come audit you, there is the implementation bit. Their facilities, and for example, maybe a chemical store, and then how you dispose of your chemicals, and then sheds, and the toilets, all those requirements by Global Gap. Before you call an auditor, you need to implement, you need to have your team trained, you have to do your internal audits, and all that costs money. So when you don't have the internal knowledge of somebody who can be able to help you implement, which eases the cost, you will need a consultant. There is a company that paid, I think, $2,200 and $700 to the CB, and then the consultant required $3,000. That is $5,700. Okay, you have not paid transport and accommodation for that auditor. So I don't know, is 6,000 cheap or expensive?
Well, for my generation, it is expensive. In my own generation.
So that's what I mean, that for you to implement and get certified, it might be very expensive for this, especially for SMEs and those who are starting. But for giants, it's not a big deal because they have already broken even. They are able to export and sell. And so it's just a cost that comes in and they're getting the returns. To them, it's not expensive. To those who are starting and SMEs, it is relatively expensive. But what we are saying is there are options to mobilize resources. So they are getting support from NGOs where they are willing to pay sometimes the full cost, sometimes 50%. And also the awareness, what are the benefits you get after certification? Because you're able to break even in the market. When you certify your product against Global Gap, your market increases, I think, to 50%. When you add a social audit, goes up to 70. When you have all across to BRCGS, it goes to almost 70, 80%. So there is a benefit, but the initial capital to implement and have you certified is not cheap for SMEs. It could range from $6,000 to $7,000, which is not cheap for SMEs.
Thank you, Susan. So you've been mentioning some amounts, right? Which is for me is chicken change. I mean, like I spend like $6,000 every day, just hanging out. So for me, it's not a big deal. but for the others, it is a
It's
big
relative.
deal. Now,
Expensive
it
is
is
relative, yeah.
Yeah. So now, Damian, what are the creative ways to get certified, right? So, I mean, Susan has mentioned, and it looks like just an individual farm. Just one farmer will bring out the $6,000 and all of that. What creative ways are there? Can a group of farmers get certified? What are the other options that exist to get certified? Damian.
Okay, thank you so much, Abdul. Yes, I let me just speak briefly on what Susan said. And expensive is truly relative. Certification, yeah, it's expensive, but expensive is truly relative. Why do I say so? Because most of the people have been implementing certification. They've never complained of the cost involved in implementing certification. And do you know why? They are aware. They know the benefit of getting certification. They know what the impact it will do to their businesses, so they don't care about the cost of it. Okay. And yes, what are the other options for SMEs? I think initially I did mention that okay, you can always scale certification. It's scalable. Your global gap might be too expensive. HACCP, that is hazard analysis critical control point, is not too expensive compared to global gap. So you can start with that. And also, if farmers, I always encourage farmers. Farmers will always come to tell you that okay, I want to get certified. How many hectares do you have? They'll tell you 2 hectares, and it doesn't really make economic sense of it. And I always advise, okay, why not form a cluster or a cooperative that you come together, and put funds together, pay for this certification and the others and the like. So I think that is the best way for farmers and SMEs to go about it. And also, we have, I've been working with the exporter for a while, and they normally use group of farmers because most of the certification we implement, they are always on, they are farm level certification. So they normally work with farmers hand in hand. And if a farmer can't, on his own implement certification, he can always identify some of these exporters and to work with, they'll be able to pull some of these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Susan spoke for, the context of Rwanda, I want to believe. Damian spoke in the context of Nigeria. Eric, are you on the call?
Yes, I am.
Please,
Yes,
can you add your thoughts?
Yes, I want to just put a quick remark in regards to time and the cost of certification. I've experienced the both sides of the coin, having been in RCB, of course, and also being an implementer. So I know the two sides of the coin. And Susan is correct in terms of what she's saying for the costs. Actually, she's almost accurate in terms of the actual cost for some of the schemes. But I always say, like Damian has said, it depends on the after you get certified, what does it mean for you? Is it a market access kind of certification where if you don't have, you can't export? If that's the cost of it, then you don't have an option. But I always, now on the implementation side of things, I always tell people the cost of compliance or certification is high if you get your things wrong from the start. If you start production without foreseeing, at some point you will need certification and start doing things from scratch, then the cost of compliance will be high because the standard will say you need to have a floor that is made of this material. But when you're starting the farm and building, you didn't factor in that and you put a nice fancy floor with flowers like I've seen in the field. Then the standard will say we need a white surface because we need to see where there is dirt. So the cost of converting that floor to make it compliant is what makes compliance high. So start from scratch. Know that at some point you will need certification. So do your gap assessment early. Put the structures as per the standards. Start working on your documentation so that probably you might not need a consultant who is very expensive to align your scheme. Always have a vision of at some point I will need certification, so you start doing things right. And I always also say start by obeying the law. If you start by obeying the law, doing things right, buying the right chemicals, approved chemicals, using the right materials, then at the point where you need certification, you're just putting your ducks in a row, so to speak, so that your system complies. On the CB side, the costs are determined by many factors. The cost of having that CB running is very high because of accreditation. So they always try to balance paying the accreditation fees, paying the cost of auditors, and charging the client. So those ones, I can tell you, they won't change anytime soon. But the cost of compliance now, the implementation, you can always be able to manage. So I always tell people, do things right from scratch. When you're setting up the farm, set the right buildings, the right materials, plant it the right way so that you don't have to rework a lot. And then also work as cooperatives, like Damien is saying, join a smaller group, share the cost, and then it becomes very easy. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think one last person, Karen, you want to add your thoughts to this? I just want everyone to share their expert opinion around creative ways to really get certified, because we need more farms getting certified on the African continent, not only for export, but even for how we produce food for ourselves on the continent. Karen, you have 60 seconds.
Sorry, I didn't get the last.
I was asking that, yes, your thoughts, that you have 60 seconds to add your thoughts to the ongoing conversation around the other creative ways to get more farms certified, because we need many more farms to get certified on the continent.
Yes. So we find it cheaper, or rather more affordable, than work with farmer groups. So most producers can definitely plug into and leverage on their farmer group. So we can have group certification. So as Susan said, and Damien, you will find that a certification is probably 6,000 USD, but among the group certification is probably subsidized, and each farmer may end up paying even way less. So I'd encourage most farmers to work within their network of producers and even agribusinesses to plug into the groups, for group certification is more affordable. Thank you.
Thank you. Daisy, 60 seconds. Okay. In the absence of that, Karen, do you want to share correspondence emails? How can they reach GFBN if they want to reach, if they want to join, and any other relevant information that we need? Can you please just share in 60 seconds? How can you be reached?
Yes, thank you. I'm reachable on social. I'm on LinkedIn as Karen Biwot. You can engage with us on our socials through Facebook, LinkedIn again, and through our website, Global Food Business Network. We also have a subsidized upcoming 6-month membership that you can definitely also plug into. The advantages to this are way many, and you can engage with us on the website or even write to us. Cici will upload the link, the direct link that you can reach us through. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eric? I can share for Eric. I mean, if you want to reach Vitus, it is info@vitusconsult. Okay. Eric, go ahead.
Thank you so much. For Vitus, you can visit our website. I'll type it in the message box, vitusconsult.co.ke, and reach us on email, on phone, and on LinkedIn and all the socials. Looking forward to engaging with all of you.
Thank you. Damian?
Okay, thank you. So if you want to reach us, you can reach us for the company I work with, foodtooksconsult.com. That is the website. And also our email is info.foodtooksconsult. gmail.com. And also, you can also reach me personally. I'm on LinkedIn at Damian Mbediameluko. Thank you.
Thank you. DC, are you on the call? Susan. Okay. In the absence of that, I'm on LinkedIn, Abdulwasi Yomi Alimi. I'm the MD and co-founder of Glow Farm, so we can also connect on LinkedIn. So, Karen, you want to take the closing remark and then we wrap up?
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you everyone for taking time to engage with us. Thank you for this insightful session. I'll hand it over to Tisi to officially close and share GFBN updates. Thank you so much and looking forward to interacting with you even after this. Thank you. Tisi?
Thank you everyone for taking your time and joining our meeting. We really learned quite a lot from the experts today. I've just put up our LinkedIn and all our social media handles in the chat box. You can click on any of the link and then we can assist you if you choose to join membership. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. And do not forget to connect. Do not forget to stay connected. So there's a difference between connecting and staying connected. So please let's connect and let's stay connected. Hopefully we have many more of these insightful and educative webinars. And then we look forward to having more participants. Again, the next one, invite your friends, invite your enemies, invite your family, and we will be glad to receive every single one and able to share our expert knowledge. So thank you so much, everyone. Thanks to our panelists, Karen, Damian, TC, Eric, Susan, Daisy. You guys have been wonderful. You guys have done really well, and you have shown that you are the experts in the field. Thank you so much, and we look forward to having all of you perhaps on another insightful webinar to tackle another challenge around the agribusiness and agriculture industry as a whole. Thank you so much, everyone, and do have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. And
You're
thank you for the moderators. You've done quite some good work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, boss.
Thank you so much.
Have a lovely weekend, everyone.
You too. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.